International report into the death penalty reveals that a decision by various governments to punish crime and terrorism by death is responsible for a 28% rise in death sentences worldwide. The report also reveals that China has the highest number of executions. According to the report, the Asian country claims to execute thousands, but the actual figures are kept a state secret. For more on the report, we are joined in studio by Amnesty International Director in South Africa, Mr. Deprose Muchena. Deprose, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on AM News.
Thank you very much.
Deprose, what is your organization's stance on capital punishment?
Okay, Amnesty International is opposed to any form of death penalty, what you call capital punishment, for all crimes, because we believe that it is an inhuman and degrading treatment. It constitutes torture. Various studies that has been carried out by Amnesty International, but also by other academic institutions, the United Nations and so on, have indicated that the system is fraught with a number of mistakes, problems, and on review we have actually seen that a lot of people who have been sentenced to death or actually executed having gone through unfair trials and many other problems related to fair justice. So we believe in a justice system that is working and not a revengeful justice. So the 2014 report goes into detail in providing the landscape and the international picture of the death penalty situation across the world.
But Deprose, tell us more about that. What prompted this latest report and how was it conducted?
Okay, so this is part of the core work of Amnesty International in promoting human rights across the world. We document cases of death penalty, but also document cases of the development of criminal justice across the world. And in this particular instance, we have a couple of messages that comes out through this report. One is that there are two worrying trends. One is the spike in the death sentencing, which went up, from a number of 1.9 thousand last year, 2013, to about 2,400 in 2014, representing a 28% increase. The second key issue that comes out is the use of the death penalty by governments in response to terrorism and other crimes, even though there is no evidence that the death penalty has any particular deterrent effect on crime, on terrorism, as compared to other punishment regimes that are on the statute books. And the final one is that even though it is depressing to be seeing high numbers of death penalty cases, death sentencing cases, we also have a decline in actual executions across the world.
Now, tell us more about the findings of the actual report, Deprose.
Okay, so let me start with the spike in the death sentencing cases. And this is driven much more by developments in Nigeria and Egypt, where mass death sentencing by especially the military were conducted, and in Egypt as well. We have also seen a spike in death sentences in the Middle East, where the death penalty is still retained. So you've got that problem, which is a spike in sentencing, but a decline in actual execution, because many countries are moving towards abolition, or even if they might retain death penalty on their statute book, they're actually not actually executing. So they become abolitionists in practice. If you look at the developments in this area, you'll see that in 1945, when the UN was established, you had 8 countries that actually had abolished the death penalty. Today you have 140. So the global trend in our report indicates a move towards abolition, which is commendable. And I think that we are arguing that governments that continue to use the death penalty to deal with terrorism, to deal with other crimes such as murder, drug trafficking and so on, could resort to other forms of punishment which are corrective, reformative, and improve the criminal justice system, because there are many unfair trials. And also in the Middle East and North Africa, we have seen cases where the death penalty is used for particular groups of people, foreign nationals, people who are poor, people who do not have proper support and legal defense on their side. And so this is an unjust system of carrying out justice.
Deprose, just how scientific is your data collection?
Okay, so Amnesty International collects information and uses independent sources, its own data. We collect information from a range of sources, including government sources, the media, other non-governmental organizations, academic institutions, and we also have researchers that follow cases in particular countries. We talk to families of people who are on death row or people who have been executed. We also talk to lawyers and other human rights defenders. But Amnesty International believes in an independent verification of the data that we find. It is not always complete because other countries do not put the data of death penalty and executions into the public domain. They remain state secrets, and that is the case in the situation of China.
Deprose, in your report, why do the countries you have named resort to capital punishment? You mentioned terrorism and murder, as well as civil crimes as well.
You see, there's a rising falsehood actually that says that if you use the death penalty, you will see a reduction in crime. The UN has carried out studies across the world, including as recently as 2007, 2008, and have even compared countries, Singapore, Hong Kong, Hong Kong being an abolitionist state, Singapore being a retentionist state, but there's no evidence actually that the death penalty has a particular deterrent effect on those crimes as compared to other forms of punishment. So we believe in human rights being protected even in cases of delivering criminal justice. And criminal justice systems don't have to be vengeful. It has to be restorative and reformative.
Deprose, why is China's exact number of executions an issue of interest to you as Amnesty International? Because we never know. They just say they execute thousands, but the actual number is a state secret. Why?
And that is actually the problem. Firstly, we have always been calling for governments to release data and information on executions because it's important for that information to the public domain. And we have stopped putting estimates on China since 2009 because we believe that that creates problems. We would like China to release information about executions because it allows a debate about the criminal justice system in China. It also demonstrates the independence of the judiciary or lack thereof. It also presents information, China is a big state, about whether other countries can actually reform. So China remains a critical country. The United States also retains in a number of states the death penalty, although we have seen a reduction and abolition in various states, including as late as last year in the Washington state where the governor decided to put a moratorium on the death penalty. But coming to Africa, I think the sub-Saharan African continent has been a lot more positive in the outlook because we have seen a reduction in executions from 64 in 3 countries last year to about 46 this year, which demonstrates better progress. In Madagascar, actually we have seen the parliament adopting a bill to abolish, and in many countries such as Zimbabwe, they have become abolitionists in practice because even though the death penalty is retained on the statute books, over the last 10 years we have not seen anyone being executed. And the other problem that we raise in this report is that where death penalty has been used, we've also been seeing that it's been used for people under the age of 18 in the case of Iran, and that presents problems. And in most cases, these people have been subjected to unfair trials, forced extraction of evidence through torture and forced confessions. And these things have a deterrent, these things have a serious picture that they put on human rights across the world, and we're campaigning against this.
Deprose, the US recently had problems with their botched executions. It was a famous story last year and also carrying over to much of this year. What is your take on that?
The US is, within the Americas, is one of the countries that have retained executions over the last decade. The picture in the Americas is a decline across the region. And the positive things that a number of states are now actually putting either moratorium or actually abolishing. And your case of the botched execution is one of the problems of the death penalty because you have a system of punishment that has no recourse if there is a problem. And I think many advocates in the United States, including Amnesty International, are calling on the United States to lead by example and abolish the death penalty completely because it is not a deterrent, it is not a particular deterrent to reduction of crime in the US.
What is then, Deprose?
What is a system of justice that prioritizes human rights? What is a system of justice that provides independence to the judiciary? What is a system of justice that looks at various other forms of punishment that have been tried and tested, including in this country, in South Africa, where the death penalty was abolished, including in many other countries. So I think that the idea that if you impose the capital punishment with all these problems that I've recorded, you will have a reduction in crime or you resolve terrorism, I think is false, because those things have been driven by other factors, including poverty, inequality, unemployment, and many other social ills that are so pervasive in the countries where the death penalty is retained.
Thank you so much, Deprose, for your time and your knowledge here on AMU as well. That was Amnesty International Director in South Africa, Mr. Deprose Muchena, talking to us about recently released reports that reveal that punishment for crime and terrorism by death is responsible for a 28% rise in death sentences worldwide.